You lose your keys and mutter, "Where did I put you?" out loud. You stub your toe and curse at a table like it can hear you. You rehearse an argument in the shower with someone who isn't there. No one taught you to do this. You've been doing it since before you could read. Here's the strange part. Talking to yourself isn't a quirk. It isn't a sign that something's wrong with you. It's one of the most important tools your brain ever built, and the reason it feels so natural is that it didn't start as talking at all. It started as something else entirely. To understand where it came from, you have to go back to childhood. Not yours specifically. Childhood in general, the version every human brain passes through on its way to becoming an adult mind. Watch any 3-year-old playing alone with blocks, and you'll hear something odd. They narrate everything. This one goes here. No, not there. Now the red one. They're not performing for anyone. There's no audience. They're talking to themselves, out loud, constantly. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky studied this exact behavior nearly a century ago, and what he proposed reshaped how scientists understand the developing mind. Vygotsky argued that this childhood chatter, what he called private speech, isn't random noise. It's a child using language to guide their own actions, out loud first, because a young brain hasn't yet learned to keep that guidance internal. Over time, something shifts. The talking doesn't disappear. It goes underground. By around age 7, most children have stopped narrating their block towers out loud. But Vygotsky's theory suggests they haven't stopped talking to themselves. They've simply moved the conversation inside. What started as private speech becomes what researchers now call inner speech. The quiet, wordless-sounding voice in your head that never actually left. Which means that inner monologue running through your mind right now, the one narrating this very sentence as you read it, isn't some separate mysterious phenomenon. It's the same tool you built as a toddler, just relocated. So why would a brain need to talk to itself at all? Why not just think, silently, without turning thoughts into language? This is where modern research gets genuinely surprising. Psychologist Charles Fernyhough, who has spent decades studying inner speech, found that this internal voice does more than narrate. It regulates. It plans. It helps you hold information in mind long enough to use it. When you silently repeat a phone number to yourself before dialing, you're not just remembering. You're using language as a kind of internal scaffolding, propping up a thought that would otherwise slip away in seconds. Your working memory, the mental space where you juggle information for the next 10 or 20 seconds, leans on inner speech constantly. Take the language away, and that scaffolding disappears. Thoughts become slippery, harder to hold, harder to organize. This is why talking to yourself out loud, not just silently, sometimes works even better. Psychologist Gary Lupian ran a study where people had to search for an object among a cluttered set of images. Some participants said the object's name out loud while searching. Others stayed silent. The ones who spoke the word aloud found the object faster. Saying banana out loud, instead of just thinking it, sharpened the search. The spoken word seemed to focus attention more precisely than the same word held silently in the mind. Why would speaking something out loud work better than thinking it? One idea is that speech recruits more of your brain. Motor regions, auditory regions, regions involved in producing and hearing language, all firing together, reinforcing the thought with more neural weight than a silent thought alone can carry. In other words, when you talk to yourself in an empty kitchen while looking for your keys, you're not being strange. You're activating a wider, stronger version of the exact same cognitive tool a toddler uses stacking blocks. But inner speech does something else. It talks back. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, in your own head, "You can do this," or, in a harsher moment, "You always mess this up"? That voice isn't neutral. It has a tone, sometimes encouraging, sometimes brutal. And researchers have found that the tone of that inner voice matters enormously for how you function under stress. Studies on self-talk during high-pressure tasks, from public speaking to athletic performance, consistently find the same pattern. People who use second-person self-talk, addressing themselves as you rather than I, tend to perform better and feel less anxious under pressure. Telling yourself you can handle this creates a small amount of psychological distance, almost like a coach speaking to an athlete rather than the athlete speaking to themselves. That distance seems to quiet the emotional intensity of the moment just enough to think clearly. This detail matters more than it sounds like it should. The exact grammar of your inner voice can shift how threatening a stressful moment feels. So this internal narrator isn't just describing your life, it's actively shaping how you experience it. Here's the twist. For most of human history, this voice worked quietly in the background, mostly unnoticed, doing its job of organizing thoughts and steadying nerves. But now you live in an environment that talks back at you constantly. Social media captions your life before you've finished living it. Notifications interrupt your inner monologue dozens of times a day. Every scroll invites a fresh comparison, a fresh judgment, layered right on top of the same ancient inner voice that once just helped a child remember where the red block goes. That voice hasn't changed. But what it has to process has changed enormously. And when the inner voice starts repeating outside judgments, instead of your own steady internal guidance, it can turn from a tool that helps you think into a loop that keeps you anxious. This is part of why researchers who study rumination, the mental habit of replaying the same negative thought over and over, describe it as inner speech gone wrong. The same mechanism that once helped a toddler stack blocks can, under stress, get stuck repeating "you failed" on an endless loop instead of solving the problem in front of you. Understanding where this voice came from changes how you might relate to it. It's a leftover developmental tool, the same one that once helped you learn to tie your shoes and count to 10, still running, still trying to help, sometimes clumsily, sometimes brilliantly. Which brings you back to that empty room, the lost keys, the muttered question to no one. That moment isn't a glitch. It's a 3-year-old's block-stacking narration, matured, refined, and still doing exactly the job it always did. Guiding you, steadying you, talking, quietly or out loud, so that some part of your mind doesn't have to carry the weight of thinking entirely alone. You lose your keys and mutter, "Where did I put you?" out loud, alone in an empty room. And now you know exactly who's really asking.